This is Amla Reddy, Executive Editor of Commercial Integrator, and I'm delighted to be joined by John Greff of Bogen Communications LLC as part of our Emergency Communications Deep Dive, featured in the January-February edition of CI plus SSI, as well as on both websites as part of our Deep Dive Spotlight. Welcome, John. So nice to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Sure. So to begin, can you talk a little bit about your title and role at the company?
Yeah, my title is Regional Sales Manager of the Heartland Region of the United States. And my role is to educate and facilitate anything communications related through my distributor channel and my direct ES dealers.
Wonderful. So I understand you've spent years in law enforcement before moving into the AV and emergency communication space. So how has your real world experience helped, in responding to incidents and approaching the design of emergency communication systems?
Yeah, it's given me a unique perspective in understanding of what both administrators and personnel on site, as well as what first responders are going to be needing as far as information and announcements and communications when they're dealing with those types of emergencies. And so it's really kind of helped shape and how I design and look at implementing systems in that light.
Great. So I also know you have some training in the School Safety Advocacy Council. So, what are the common gaps you see in how schools and facilities prepare for emergency communications? And is there anything that often gets overlooked until it's too late?
Sure, really good question. The biggest gap that I've noticed with schools is just not adhering to or following any type of established standards that we have in the United States. One of the big ones that stands out is ANSI NEMA SB 40 2015, which is the American National Standard for Communication Systems for Life Safety in Schools. And a lot of individuals don't know that this standard exists and how important it is to the standards, how important that those standards are for school safety. A few of the critical items that get overlooked commonly from the standard is annual and semi-annual system testing requirements, the deployment of call-in and emergency switches throughout the facility, secondary power failover is another really big one, and then also providing proper audio intelligibility throughout their facilities. Those are the most common areas that get, and some of the most common areas that get overlooked pertaining to audibility are parking lots, drop off and pickup lines, and football fields and playgrounds and other recreational ball fields.
There's so much you have to consider, right? When you have to think about every single way to keep kids safe. Um, so what are other things that, integrators and facility leaders prioritize when it comes to emergency communication to ensure that the systems are not just compliant, but actually effective when it comes to saving lives?
That's another really good question, and you're going to get a loaded answer, right? So here we go. I recommend that integrators and end users become more familiar with national standards like ANSI NEMA SB 40 and other organizations such as PASS, which is the Partner Alliance for Safer Schools. And they have a lot of free online resources that align with these industry standards and best practices. And by referencing and adhering to these standards during design, it really helps ensure that intercom and paging and emergency communication systems are being implemented and maintained in a proper manner. I also encourage facility leaders to prioritize hiring consultants to come into their facilities and conduct proper safety and security threat assessments. And because that'll also ensure that they're taking in all the considerations and angles in their crisis plans and what they should be looking for in deficiencies and making sure that they get addressed.
Wonderful. Yeah, and I like that you mentioned PASS. I know they're doing great stuff for schools and in the emergency communication space. My next question for you is based on your own experience and training, what are a few things that schools and facilities often don't realize they should be doing until something happens?
Yeah, until something happens is a really good question. And there are three things that really come to mind, um, that come up a lot more often than most, and that is making sure that they have redundant power supply sources on their equipment in case of lightning strikes and power outages, right? And then the other thing is just making sure that they have a failover setup for their solution so that if something happens to the hardware, it gets damaged in a power outage, they've got something that they can fail over to and not skip a beat in their operation of their system. And then the other thing, along with, everything moving over to IP in this industry is just keeping the software up to date, that making sure that your systems are always on the latest and greatest software version is very crucial for the proper functionality of your communication systems.
Yeah, it's like having a backup of a backup of a backup, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you'd be surprised how many people they're out without systems for days, sometimes weeks, depending on product availability. And it's really unfortunate.
Speaking of emergencies, what do people actually need from a communication system?
Yeah, well, the first thing they need is for it to be fast, right? And multifunctional in how they communicate, right? And how they integrate in emergency alerts, routine announcements, any of the distributed audio messaging that they want to get out. And also, a lot of people don't do this, but more and more are migrating this direction. Also integrating in existing safety and security systems such as intrusion, access control, fire alarm, CCTV, radio systems. And, this all helps, provide safety, efficiency, and a better overall engagement and timely response when emergencies happen.
Wonderful. And then when you think about the future, what do you hope that schools and facilities do better when it comes to emergency communications?
Yeah, I'm very passionate about specific things, and this is one of them. And I really hope that schools and facilities start hiring consultants and integrators that will assist them in implementing and planning out, these systems and adhere, to ANSI NEMA SB 40 and consider some of the best practices within PASS because these standards are going to help ensure that on-site personnel and first responders can effectively respond and mitigate emergencies in a timely manner. And the most important part of that is that you know when you're dealing with an emergency, right, there's a lot of things that are happening that, can be automated. And we're doing our best here at Bogen to take a lot of those processes and sequence of events and automating them so that we can give time back to people to manage and mitigate, right? Uh, what's going on in their emergencies, because we believe that when minutes count, seconds matter.
I love that. I love that last line, giving back the time to the people and making every second count. I think that's the whole point of having emergency communications systems that are effective and actually save lives with every second. Um, so before we wrap up, I just wanted to ask, is there anything you want to add that we have not talked about?
No, I think we covered the real ground basics here. I think there's a really good foundation for people to consider when they listen to this video and read the article. And I think if we all just try a little bit harder to keep the understanding that there are standards, there are best practices, and that we need to do our best to make sure we're following them so that our on-site personnel, our kids, and our loved ones are always, being protected the best they can be.
That's wonderful to hear. Like it's there's something about it, right? It's not just the products or the services you're offering. It's about actually saving lives, and that makes it all the more meaningful, I guess. And that's what Bogen Communications is so great at. So I just wanted to say thank you for joining us today, John.
It's been my pleasure. I really appreciate this opportunity, and I hope that this content finds a lot of people well.
Absolutely. Once again, this is Amla Reddy from Commercial Integrator, and do check out both websites for our spotlight on emergency communications, as well as a January-February edition of CI plus SSI for the emergency communications deep dive. Thank you.